everybody has a dream.
Plenty of boys do ballet, you know.
What boys do ballet?
Lads do football or boxing, not ballet.
Julie Walters.
Go, Billy!
And Jamie Bell.
What's wrong with ballet?
In the network premiere of the award-winning BBC film Billy Elliot. New Year's Day at 9 on BBC One.
Oh, bedtime already. Time we put everything out, Smokey. Must make sure that everything in the ashtray is out. Don't forget to turn off the TV and pull out all the plugs. Then guard that fire and close the doors. Oh, clever little gadget. Nice to know you're safe.
This is BBC One on New Year's Day, handing over to BBC News 24.
We'll know that it will fall significantly below the present level, but not
Talking movies.
This week in Talking Movies, 2 A-list Hollywood stars make their directorial debut. George Clooney with Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, and Nicolas Cage brings us the drama Sunny.
President Bush says war may yet be necessary in Iraq. It could be at great cost to the economy. But he believes America's dispute with North Korea can be resolved with diplomacy. Not guilty, a high-ranking Russian officer walks free after killing a Chechen schoolgirl 3 years ago. And traditional Hogmanay celebrations in Edinburgh as Europe welcomes the new year. Hello, this is BBC News. I'm Gillian Nichali, and a very happy new year to those of you who have reached 2003 at this point. The news: President Bush has said war with Iraq may be necessary even at great economic cost. But he added that he hoped Iraq would disarm peacefully and so avoid a confrontation. Iraq says it has invited Hans Blix, the head of the United Nations weapons inspectors, to Baghdad. Mr. Blix is due to submit a report on the findings of the inspectors to the UN Security Council by the end of January. Caroline Hawley reports from Amman.
They're searching several sites a day now, and the UN says no hindrance from the Iraqi authorities. The inspectors do still want more information from Baghdad, but the UN Secretary-General said he saw no argument yet for war.
I still hope that we'll be able to resolve this issue peacefully, and if the cooperation continues and we are able to verify and have the evidence of what is going on in Iraq, I hope we do not have to have a military operation.
George Bush is making clear military force remains very much an option, though he says he hopes a peaceful solution is possible.
The international community has been trying to resolve the situation in Iraq through diplomacy for 11 years. And for 11 years, Saddam Hussein has defied the international community. And now we've brought the world together to send a clear signal. We expect him to disarm, to get rid of his weapons of mass destruction. Again, I hope this Iraq situation will be resolved peacefully. One of my New Year's resolutions is to work to deal with these situations in a way so that they're resolved peacefully.
In Baghdad, Iraq's Deputy Prime Minister, meeting American church leaders, was pessimistic about the prospects now for peace.
If it were in the hands of honest ladies and gentlemen, my answer will be yes. But you know, it's not in their hands. The situation is still in the hands of the warmongers. And we hope that they will listen to the voice of peace here in Iraq as well as in America. We hope so.
It's the UN's voice that counts now, at least for most of the world. Hans Blix, the chief UN weapons inspector, invited back to Baghdad. Iraq says it wants to boost cooperation with Mr. Blix's teams. A favourable assessment from him, the country's last hope avoiding war. And Iraqis are worried. This a march by school children towards a UN building with a New Year's message, a plea for peace. Caroline Hawley, BBC News, Amman.
Anthony Cordesman from the Centre for International and Strategic Studies in Washington says the United States and Britain need to see convincing evidence of Iraqi disarmament before the end of February in order to avoid conflict.
Well, I think the United States and Britain would very clearly like to see Iraq convincingly disarm. Perhaps the difference between the U.S. and British view and the one that the Secretary General of the UN has put forth is Britain and the United States, I think, believe this has to be done. There has to be convincing evidence Iraq will fully disarm between now and sometime in February. The UN is more a diplomatic structure, more oriented toward disarmament, and is willing to take more time, but it's not clear it really has that time, and it seems doubtful that Iraq does.
The American president has said the United States is involved in a diplomatic showdown with North Korea and not a military one. Mr. Bush said he believed the dispute over Pyongyang's decision to restart a nuclear reactor could be resolved peacefully. North Korea's actions have prompted international fears that it plans to build nuclear weapons. It said a choice because the Americans, it thinks, were planning a